The abandonment, the sky above Vera 9 burned in shades of crimson and orange as the sun dipped beyond the mountains. Smoke curled through the air, and the wind carried the scent of metal and ash. Buildings once full of life now stood hollow and broken. Streets where laughter echoed had fallen silent. Vera 9 was not just a colony anymore. It had become a battlefield. No one asked for children, huddled in underground shelters, clutching small toys and blankets that no longer brought comfort. Parents whispered soft lies to keep fear at bay. Above them, all the few remaining defenders watched the skies with tired eyes, waiting for a miracle that never came. Rain stood on a crumbled tower once used to monitor trade. Ships now turned into a lookout. His uniform was torn. His arm was wrapped in cloth stained red. He did not flinch as explosions echoed in the distance. His eyes remained fixed on the horizon where shadows moved like dark clouds swallowing stars. The Dravari were coming again. The colony's defenses had crumbled in days. The first wave shattered the orbital ring. The second wave silenced the communication array. The third wave brought ground troops that marched with fire and death. The colonists had tried to resist, but they were farmers, miners, engineers, not soldiers. Still they fought with what they had. Rain organized them, trained them, gave them something to believe in. But hope was running thin. Vera 9 sent distress signals across the stars. First to the nearby settlements, then to the core systems, and finally to Earth itself. The silence was louder than the enemy's roar. The message was clear. No one was coming. The United Worlds Council had issued a formal statement. They regretted the loss of Vera 9, but said that any interference could spark a greater conflict. Political stability mattered more than a small colony. The council signed papers while children cried in bunkers. They spoke of peace while fire rained from the sky. Rain did not curse the council. He had once served in their forces. He knew how they operated. He also knew they had forgotten what it meant to protect their own. Each night, the colony grew quieter. Less people, less light, more fear. The Dravari would land again soon. The last message intercepted from their fleet spoke of final cleansing. No survivors. No witnesses. Rain met with the remaining fighters inside a broken transport hub. They were no longer an army. Just 30 tired souls with scars on their faces and fire in their eyes. They had no fleet, no support. Just a will to keep the children alive a little longer. He laid out a final plan. A distraction, a stand. Buy time for the youngest to be moved deeper underground, where the sensors could not find them. Some wept quietly, some nodded. None refused outside. The stars blinked cold and uncaring. Then a flicker appeared. A strange pulse. A signal lost to time. One of the technicians gasped. He ran to Rain with trembling hands. The signal was old. It used a frequency band decades ago. A signal known only to those who studied forgotten wars. It was the code of the Revenant fleet. Rain stared at the screen. The signal was faint but real. A single blinking light from the void. A ghost in the system. He did not speak at first. He knew the stories. Everyone did. The Revenant fleet had once been Earth's darkest weapon. Silent, fast, brutal. They ended wars before they began. Then they disappeared. Some said disbanded. Others said buried by politics. Few believed they still existed. He looked again. The signal pulsed steady now, closer, near the edge of the system. No identification tags, no standard protocol. Just that ancient signature. Whispers filled the room. Could it be real? Was someone actually coming? Rain turned off the screen. He looked at the faces around him. He said only this: prepare for the worst. Hope for nothing. Night fell across Vera 9. The colony lay broken, but not dead. Somewhere in the shadows a signal pulsed on. Somewhere far in the dark something old had awakened, and it was moving fast. Silence before the storm. The morning on Vera 9 was different. Not quieter, not louder, just strange, like the land was holding its breath. Ash still floated through the sky, but the air felt heavier, as if the clouds themselves waited for something unknown. People moved with slow steps, eyes scanning the sky, not with hope, but with dread of what might fall. Nextrain stood near the underground hatch where the last group of children had been sent. He had not slept, not since the signal came. The blinking light haunted his thoughts. Was it a mistake, a leftover echo from an old war, or was it a promise? He had ordered the fighters to keep their eyes open and minds calm. He knew false hope could kill faster than bullets. The Dravari were preparing for another strike. Drones flew across the ruins, scanning every shadow. They hunted the last defenders like predators searching for fading warmth. Technician who first caught the signal sat by the console, hands shaking as he scanned the comms. No words came through. Just that steady rhythm, like a heartbeat deep in space. He called it the ghost tone. Every few minutes it would blink once strong, then fade again, as if something out there was speaking in. Silent Serene stepped into the old command room where the remaining militia rested. Faces, pale bodies, thin nerves on edge. They had trained for weeks, but this fight was never fair. They lacked weapons, supplies, armor, but not spirit. Each of them carried pain behind their eyes, but they also carried something else, something that had no name but was stronger than fear. He looked at them and spoke, not with orders, not with tactics, but with truth. He told them he did not know if anyone was coming. He said this signal could be nothing, but even if it was something, they could not rely on it. They must still fight. They must still protect the last innocent souls hidden below the surface. Outside, a low hum grew louder. Dravari dropships circled like vultures ready to strike. One of the scouts ran in with a report. A new set of enemy troops was gathering near the northern ridge. This would be their final sweep. The colony was surrounded. Rain nodded and returned to his post. He held a small screen in his hand showing the signal. Still blinking, still moving closer. But no message, no ship, no sound. He stared at it until someone called his name. A child had come up from the shelter. The girl held a small drawing in her hand, a picture of a starship surrounded by fire, but in the fire was light. She gave it to Rain and smiled before being taken. Back underground, he folded the paper, placed it near his chest, and walked out into the open. The defenders were lining up now near the main square, using broken walls as cover. The air buzzed with tension. They all knew what was coming. This was the end. Then it happened. Far above the colony, the sky shimmered for a moment, like water rippling in reverse. A dark shape emerged from that shimmer, long, sharp, silent. Then another and another. No warning, no flash, just presence. They appeared like shadows pulled from a forgotten past. The Dravari sensors screamed in panic. Their ships scrambled there. Guns turned skyward, but it was already too late. Rain's screen blinked faster now. The signal had changed. A new rhythm, a new pattern, one only known by a few. It was the Revenant fleet's silent code for engage. The defenders looked up, mouths open, hearts racing. Some thought they were dreaming. Others began to cry, not from fear, but from something else, something lost and now found in orbit. The Dravari fleet tried to form a wall, but the black ships of the Revenant moved like phantoms. They did not fire in waves, they fired in whispers. One by one, enemy ships vanished without explosions, without noise, just silence and light. Then nothing. The colony watched as the battle above them turned from invasion to execution. The enemy who had mocked humanity now tried to flee. They failed. Rain dropped the screen and raised his hand. His voice echoed through the comms. Hold your positions, do not move until called. This is not over yet. The Revenant ships did not land, not yet. They circled the skies like wolves, keeping their prey from escape. One of the enemy dropships tried to lift off but was torn apart midair with a beam that left no trace of heat or sound. Just absence rain. Felt the ground shake. Not from attack but from something deeper. The balance of power had shifted. The forgotten had been remembered. The dead fleet had returned, and it had not come to talk. He moved through the colony, helping the wounded, organizing supplies, speaking with his people. They had survived the night. They had survived abandonment. Now they would see what came after. No words were needed. The defenders waited, eyes wide, as the skies above glowed darker. The silence before the storm had ended. The storm was here, the ghost. Fleet stirs, the blackness of deep space stretched without end, quiet and untouched. No signals, no broadcasts, only distant stars blinking like memories. In this silence, the fleet moved without lights, without sound, like shadows born from the void itself. Inside the command deck of the lead ship, an older man stood watching a screen filled with tactical data. His face was calm, not cold, but unreadable. Like a mountain weathered by time. His name was Dane, known once as Admiral. Dane of Earth's high command, now known only to a few as the ghost of the Revenant fleet. He did not speak much. His crew understood him without long speeches. They were not just soldiers, they were believers. Every one of them had left something behind: families, homes, ranks, and medals. They followed something more than orders, they followed a promise. Number. Colony would be left behind, no innocent life would be abandoned. While they still drew breath, the signal from Vera 9 had come 2 nights ago. A forgotten code lost in layers of classified archives. Most would have ignored it. Some would have erased it, but the Revenant watched for such things. They lived for the calls. No one else answered. Dane had read the details without blinking. A human colony crushed by alien forces, declared unimportant. By the council, left to burn without defense. He did not call for votes, he did not wait for permission. He gave a simple command: prepare for departure. The crew responded with precision. Ships once hidden in black zones powered up. Weapon systems charged silently. Coordinates locked in. The Revenant fleet moved not like a navy, but like a blade drawn in darkness now. They hovered at the edge of Vera 9's orbit, watching the planet below. Scans confirmed the enemy was deeply rooted: ground forces, orbital support, and surface control. Towers. The colony's defenders were few, but still alive, still resisting. Dane's second in command stepped forward with a report. No official response from Earth, no contact from the council. The Revenant was acting alone again. Dane nodded once. Alone is how they worked best. He looked at the holomap showing enemy positions. He marked targets one by one with calm movements. No speeches, no drama, only focus. Each mark meant an end. Each blink meant justice. Orders flowed across the fleet silently. Ships moved into strike formation. Stealth fields activated. Dravari patrols did not see them coming. One moment their scanners were clear, the next they blinked out of existence. The first strike came swift. An enemy gunship exploded without flame. Only dust. The second strike disabled an orbital cannon mid-charge. No alarms, only confusion. The Dravari commander sent out emergency calls, but found only silence. Their frequencies were jammed, their sensors useless. They had no idea how many ships had arrived, no idea where they were hiding. Panic crept in fast back on the Revenant's lead ship. Dane watched it all unfold with steady eyes. He spoke only. Once into the fleet comes. No survivors among hostiles, no mercy for slavers. Protect the colony above all. Revenant fighters moved toward the surface, releasing small pods that dropped like rain. These were not bombs, these were gifts. Inside each pod were supplies, weapons, shields. tools for the colony defenders to rise again rain, and his fighters received the drops with disbelief. Advanced rifles, medkits, energy packs, gear they had only heard about in stories. He looked to the sky, saw the dark shapes circling, and knew someone had remembered them. The Revenant ground team began their descent next. Not many, only a small force, but each one trained beyond regular limits. They hit the ground running, no hesitation. They found the weak points in the enemy line and tore through like fire through dry leaves. Dane did not land. His place was in orbit, watching the battlefield like a hunter watches the forest. Every move was calculated, every strike planned. This was not war for glory. This was precision justice on the colony streets. The Dravari began to retreat. They had not faced such a force before. Their weapons failed to lock targets. Their drones fell from the sky. Their fear grew with each second. Civilians came out from hiding, slowly unsure if what they saw was real. They saw black armored soldiers fighting not for conquest but for them. They saw hope take shape in human form. Rain met one of the Revenant soldiers face to face near the command station. No words passed between them, only a nod. That was enough. They were not alone anymore in space. The enemy flagship tried to escape. Dane saw the path it plotted. He sent one final command to the Revenant cruiser in pursuit. Disable engine, remove weapons, allow no broadcast. The cruiser responded with a single silent strike. The enemy ship lost power, drifted, and vanished into the cold. Dane turned from the screen and walked toward the memorial wall inside his ship. Names carved in metal of those who once called him commander. He placed a hand over the newest empty space. Vera 9 will not join this wall, not today. The Revenant fleet had returned not with banners or parades, but with action. They answered the call, not to reclaim glory, but to keep a promise made long ago in shadows. The colony was still in danger, but now it had defenders. Real ones, and somewhere deep inside every survivor, a fire was lit again. The kind of fire that only burns when hope returns. Earth strikes back. The ground trembled under the weight of war. But this time the sound did not bring fear. It brought courage. Vera 9 had not seen light for days now. Fire returned. But it was not from the enemy. This time it was from the force that came to stand for them. Rain stood on the ridge where the colony's northern wall once existed, now replaced with rubble and scorched soil. He looked at the fighters beside him, their uniforms torn, their eyes burning with a strange energy. They no longer looked like survivors. They looked like warriors. The sky above rumbled with low thunder as the Revenant fleet shifted its position. In orbit, dark silhouettes hovered between stars and surface, delivering cover fire and support with clean precision. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. The war had changed, and everyone on the ground could feel it. Dravari troops were still scattered through the outer zones, holding key points near the water plant, the signal tower, and the old transport station. If they held those positions, they could still cut off the colony's air and power. Rain knew the importance of acting now, not later. He received a brief transmission from the Revenant command. No long message, no discussion, just coordinates and a green signal. The meaning was simple. They were ready. Rain signaled the fighters and moved down the slope with steady steps. The colony's militia spread out using new weapons sent by the fleet. No one hesitated, no one questioned. This was their land, and they were done running. The first strike came at dawn. The militia approached the water plant under cover from Revenant drones that hovered like silent birds in the mist. The enemy guards never saw it coming. In seconds their lines broke and the colonists reclaimed control. Rain did not stop. He moved with purpose toward the second target, where the signal tower still blinked red under enemy control. The Dravari had turned it into a command post, using it to track resistance across the colony. But the Revenant team, had already done their part disabling the tower's external sensors. Through orbit-level interference array, and a squad of 10 fighters stormed the gate. What followed was not a battle but a message. With their new weapons and strategy, they overwhelmed the enemy quickly and took back the tower. Meanwhile, across the sky the Revenant ships formed a shield between Vera 9 and the outer space lanes. Any Dravari ship that tried to leave or arrive was erased without a sound. No escape, no reinforcements. One of the largest Dravari transports tried to break through the upper atmosphere hoping to regroup in orbit. It did not make it far. A Revenant strike cruiser intercepted it and ended its flight with a single silent beam that tore through metal like paper. The people of Vera 9 began to emerge from shelters and caves, moving carefully as the air began to clear. They saw the black flags of the Revenant drop from the sky, marking safe zones. Some cried, some fell to their knees. Some stood still, unable to believe that help had truly come. Rain returned to the main square where the last group of defenders waited. News had spread fast. The water plant secure. The signal tower reclaimed. Power slowly returning to the shelters. He looked at the faces around him and gave one final order. We push to the transport station now. We end this today. The march to the transport station was hard. Enemy snipers still held positions in the higher ground. Booby traps lined the roads. But the Revenant had sent support in the form of walking drones and mini-scouts that scanned and cleared the path. Rain moved with speed, leading the charge. Gunfire echoed through the empty streets as the last battle began. The Dravari fought with desperation, but their fear showed. They no longer believed they were in control. One of the Revenant fighters joined Rain mid-battle, a tall figure in dark armor carrying a pulse rifle with both hands. No words were exchanged, but Rain understood. The two moved through the station side by side, taking down resistance room by room. It did not take long. The final enemy commander fell, trying to escape through a broken hatchway. No mercy was shown, no warning given. The Revenant did not believe in second chances for those who enslaved the weak. Rain looked across the station, now silent. He raised his hand and signaled the all clear. The defenders cheered for the first time in days. Above them, the Revenant ships remained still, silent, watching. No transmission, no announcement. Their mission was clear. Protect Vera 9, destroy the threat, then vanish. Later that night, Rain stood at the highest point of the colony, looking up. The stars returned to the sky, now free from fire. He remembered the day when no one answered their call, when silence was all they heard. Now silence still reigned, but it was different. It was the silence of peace earned through sacrifice. The Revenant had not come for reward or praise. They had come because someone had to. Because some promises are kept not with words, but with action. Vera 9 was free, but no one would forget how close it came to being lost, and no one would forget who came when all others turned away. After the fire, smoke still lingered in the broken corners of Vera 9, but the air was changing, now filled with something new, not hope. Exactly, not joy either. Something quieter, something deeper, the feeling that comes when survival turns into life again. Rain walked through the colony, slowly passing by damaged walls, broken streets and shattered lights. People were out now, moving carefully, helping each other, fixing what little could be repaired for now. Some still limped, some still carried scars on their faces, but their eyes had changed, their steps had meaning again. They were no longer waiting for death, they were rebuilding. Children played near a crater where a supply drop had once landed. Their laughter returned slowly, like a melody trying to remember its rhythm. Elders sat near the main square, speaking softly, sharing food again. Even the smallest sounds felt louder. Now every voice mattered. Every heartbeat counted. The Revenant fleet remained above the planet, still silent, still watching, like guardians that asked for nothing in return. No ships had landed. No soldiers had stayed behind, only the quiet black banners left on rooftops as reminders that help had come not from the Council, not from distant alliances, but from the shadows of Earth's forgotten warriors. Rain entered the old command center, now half-repaired wires hanging from wall screens, blinking with limited power. The technician who once caught the signal stood by the console watching a message blink on repeat, not a message from Earth, not a warning from the Council, just a short-coded line from the Revenant. It said mission complete, status secured, no reply. Expected, he stared at it for a while, then turned away. There was nothing more to say. Sometimes silence said more than speeches. A day later, the Council finally responded. A formal transmission arrived from Earth. Urgent but polite, they praised the bravery of the colony. They expressed regret over the delay. They requested reports and updates. They offered supplies in the coming months, but made no mention of the fleet, no mention of those who turned the tide, no mention of what they had. Ignoredrain read the message and deleted it. He had no interest in words that came after the danger had passed. The people of Vera 9 had learned something stronger than politics. They had learned to trust what they saw, what they felt, and what had stood beside them in fire. A monument was built near the center of the colony. Nothing grand, nothing polished. Just a stone tower carved with simple lines at the base. A plate made of melted weapon fragments from the final battle was placed by the Fiamun of Ploof. Hands of those who had fought and bled and survived. On it a message written by Rain, with care, not for history, but for memory. When no one came, they came. When we were forgotten, they remembered. When all light faded, they returned from the dark. Not for medals, not for orders, but because we mattered. Above the monument a small metal disc was placed, the last copy of the Revenant signal, blinking faintly. Forever, now silent, forever strong. The sky above Vera 9 remained open, clear stars blinking once more without threat. Farmers returned to the fields slowly. Machines repaired by tired hands began to work again. Lights returned to home. Schools reopened. Water flowed freely. Power stabilized, and the fear that once owned every breath began to fatter. Rain continued to lead, not as a soldier, not as a commander, just as someone who had been there from the first flame to the final silence. People listened to him, not because he demanded it, but because he had never left them, never lied, never surrendered. He walked alone, often visiting the edges of the colony, where the battle once raged. Sometimes he stood there for hours, saying nothing, watching the sky. Where the ships had vanished, no one knew where the Revenant fleet had gone. Some said they returned to their hidden space. Some said they would wait in silence again, ready for the next call that no one else would answer. One evening, a child stood beside him, holding a drawing folded in small hands. She offered it without a word. He opened it carefully. The same child from days ago, the same fire in her eyes. The drawing showed stars, a planet, and a ship shaped like a shadow surrounded by light. Under the picture were words written in uneven letters. They came back. For us. Rain placed the drawing in his coat and nodded once. He looked at the sky and whispered, not with sadness, but with respect. Not goodbye, but something simpler. Thank you. As night covered Vera 9 and winds moved softly across the land, the colony rested safe for the first time in many nights. Above in the endless sky, the stars remained quiet, but somewhere far beyond their lightships moved through the dark, not searching for glory, not waiting for permission, only listening for the next cry for help. And when it came, they would return again, not because they were called, but because someone had to, because some promises never die. The end.